Hey kids, gather up the family. KCTV5 presents The KC Zoo Show. Today on The KC Zoo Show, get an incredible look at the new penguins. We're on the brand new exhibit, getting up close like you've never seen. Find out how they communicate with each other and much more. Plus, have your school take a field trip to the zoo. We'll tell you about some of the fun activities you can do. And we're learning all about the orangutans. Wait until you find out just how strong their arms are and why they can spend up to 3 weeks without touching the ground. Now, here's Tom Walks.
Welcome to another special edition of the KC Zoo Show. I'm Tom Walks, and actually, I'm not this penguin, but as you can tell, we are here behind the scenes on exhibit with the penguins this morning. And I'm joined with Sean. Sean, one of the coolest experiences we've had on the Zoo Show in the last several years, to be behind the scenes on exhibit with the penguins this morning.
I am pleased, Tom.
This is awesome.
Isn't this neat? 45 degrees in here, so it's a little chilly, so we got our coats on.
Yep, trying not to fall in the water.
That's right, you don't want to be the first.
Yeah.
But we're really in here today because we're talking about communication and penguins talking with each other.
So penguins have their own language, right?
They do. Each species has a little bit of a different call to each other. So they might be telling another penguin, hey, you're getting a little bit too close to my space, which they might also include with a little peck to your side, saying, hey, this is my area. But they also have little ritualistic calls too. So they're calling each other saying, hey, you wanna be my girlfriend? Hey, you wanna be my boyfriend type of deal?
Okay. Interesting. So now, and of course, we've got a whole bunch of different. We're in the cold weather penguin exhibit, right? And you've got a whole bunch of different species of penguins here, both swimming around and kind of both on the land and in the water. And do the Gentoo penguins have a different language than the king penguins, for example?
They do. They do much different calls, and I'm not going to demonstrate, but hopefully we'll get some of those on camera here. But the Gentoo penguins and rockhopper penguins and king penguins all have different calls. They all have different motions of how they go through their rituals. So it's pretty interesting. In fact, it's so interesting that we actually had Dr. Heather Lynch come into the zoo, and she is doing a study on Gentoo penguin voices. Because we're in a unique situation here at the zoo, we brought all these penguins from numerous different zoos and aquariums throughout the country. So they're all new to each other, so she wanted to do a study seeing how new penguins, how they do with each other as far as interacting and vocalizing with each other.
Interesting. So the zoo is a part of sort of groundbreaking research.
That's right. We hope to.
Yeah.
They came in last week, just before Thanksgiving. They did all their work. They had a microphone set up in here and cameras all over to see who was communicating with who and how. And she's actually been down to Antarctica, and she'll be able to compare what she's seen here with what she had down in Antarctica.
Wow. So are you able to tell, because you work with these penguins quite a bit, and as you can see, we've got some friends right here behind it. This is, Sean, this is one of the coolest things, honestly. I mean, they're jumping out, they're coming over to say hello. Are you able to tell by their calls what they're saying?
You can definitely tell what they're
intending.
Yes. You can see if you have a pair that, like I said earlier, boyfriend and girlfriend, you can tell they're going through the motions. They have a particular call for that. Sometimes it might just be a real loud holler. I've heard the kings do a real loud holler, and it's almost like if he's by himself, he's wondering where everybody is. So, you can start to tell a little bit of that, but also by the way their mannerisms are, the way their body reacts to somebody else. They might have somebody getting too close to where their nest site is, or too close to themselves, and they give them a little bark, hey, get away from here.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just fascinating. And so not only to watch them when you come into the zoo, but also to know that, they speak their own language just like we do. And they want to be on camera too, of course. They're right here with us.
Apparently we're just a couple of rocks standing
I know,
here
right?
way.
Exactly. They're just walking. How cool is this? All right, well, Sean, thank you so much. Another awesome time here at the Kansas City Zoo. We'll have more for you coming up after the break. And guys, thanks for joining us.
Stick around. The KC Zoo Show will be right back.
Welcome back. We're here in the Tiger Trail in Asia. Check out what's behind me. This beautiful, beautiful cat, this tiger, taking a nap this morning. Now, I have to be honest with you. We're joined here by David, who's part of the educational department here at the Kansas City Zoo. Growing up, one of my favorite activities was, of course, taking field trips to the zoo. How fun is that to see all the different animals? There's a lot of activities that you can do if your school does decide to come out to the zoo. Can you share a little bit about those activities and what that involves?
Absolutely, absolutely. So as a school group, you come to the zoo, there's a lot of different options for you. You can just kind of come on your own and enjoy it with your own field trip. We really encourage you to get the most out of your visit though. Get a tour, get a zoo classroom, or get a guide to take you around with you. And we even have a lot of activities that we can do in the zoo to help make your experience a lot more educational.
All right, let's do this.
All right, so one of our activities involves measuring. We really like to try and align everything with state standards for the school so that the teachers really get on board.
Okay.
So one of these involves a little bit of math. I hope that's okay with you.
Oh boy, I'm a meteorologist, so I did take quite a few math classes.
All right. So we have quite a few different animals here, things like our polar bear, our tortoise, tarantula, bunkie, and our lorikeet. So we like to do different activities where we can try and measure different heights here. So what I'm going to have you do first is take our polar bear.
Okay.
And we're going to see if we can't measure how big that polar bear really is when he's standing up on all hind legs.
Wow.
There.
Now we see them in the exhibit, and they are huge when they jump in the water and everything. So this will be really interesting.
Really big. So he's about 8 feet. So I have a rope here, and it's measured at 1 foot markers along the way. So I'm going to have you take the other end of this. We're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. So standing all the way up here, our polar bear can be very, very tall, you see.
Wow.
Really big.
See, now it seems like they're big enough when they're on all fours, but standing up, that's
It can be
giant.
really intimidating if you're right up against it,
yeah,
for sure. So we can take one of our other animals here and do something a little bit smaller, perhaps.
Okay.
We'll take our tape measure.
Okay.
Something a little smaller could be our tarantula.
Ooh.
So if you had to guess, how wide would you say tarantula is from foot to foot?
Oh, geez. Like a big one or a small one? 'Cause I
A
know
big
they
one, kind of like this one.
Maybe 8 inches?
8 inches. I'll tell you what, it's about 5.5 inches.
Oh,
just that right
close.
there, yeah.
Wow.
So a lot of different ways that we can use activities throughout the zoo to help kids get those common core standards that they need in their classroom.
Interesting. So you can go through all the different animals and measure out all those animals?
Exactly.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun, and it is surprising how large some of these animals are up close and personal.
For sure.
Especially this cat behind us that's taking a sweet nap right now.
Yeah, great
so
example.
If kids want to come out, what do schools do to plan those field trips out here?
Great question, great question. So you can always go to our website or call. We really encourage planned field trips to be booked a long time in advance because we really book up quick.
You fill up pretty
so
quick.
using the website or calling is a great way to kind of get in the door there and make sure that you can get a great experience.
Awesome. David, thank you so much for joining us. Let's send it over to Tom.
Thanks, Haley. Well, we are here this morning with Jordan with the Education Department. Jordan, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
And we've got the orangutans behind us here this morning.
We do. We have the TK, Josie, and Jill behind us right now.
Always a great exhibit to come check out here at the Kansas City Zoo. So what are we going to learn about this morning?
Today we're going to talk about how orangutans spend most of their life in the trees. They are brachiators, which means they can actually swing from tree to tree with their extremely long arms and really strong hands. So what we can do right now, we're actually going to turn you into an orangutan.
Okay, I'm ready. All right.
Let's do it. So here, these are going to be your orangutan arms, and you're going to see just how long orangutan arms are. So you can kind of put those behind you.
All right.
There you go.
Look at this. Look at
So yeah, you can kind of spread out.
a little longer than our arms, right?
So
look at how long this is.
So an orangutan's wingspan is actually at least 7 feet long on a big male, a big guy.
Wow.
And so over 1.5 feet longer than ours on average. So they use those long arms to swing from tree to tree, spending up to 3 weeks at a time without touching the ground.
Really?
Yeah.
Without touching the ground for 3 weeks?
Yeah, in the wild they'll spend up to 3 weeks without touching the ground.
That's incredible.
So what they're doing at that time, they're actually looking for food, and they're actually sleeping in nests. So they'll build nests with those long arms and their strong hands. They'll actually grab twigs and leaves. They'll sleep in those nests, but they'll also be looking for fruit. And this is where their hands come in. So how big do you think an orangutan hand is?
A lot bigger than ours.
A lot bigger than ours?
Right?
All right, I'll show you. So this is a print of an orangutan hand. So this is actually from one of our orangutans. This is from Rufus. So you can put your hand up to it.
Okay.
And we'll show just how much bigger their hand is.
Oh my gosh, look at how much bigger that is. So what's so incredible, what you were just saying, and if we can go back to this real quick, that they make nests in the trees?
They actually make nests in the trees. They'll make 2 nests a day. They'll make a nest to kind of have an afternoon nap, and then they'll make a nest overnight where they'll actually sleep all night in a big nest. It kind of looks like a big bird's nest, actually, or a squirrel's nest.
Really? That
Yeah.
is I never knew that. That is really incredible.
So what they're doing is they're actually grabbing twigs with their opposable thumb. Just like us, they have a thumb that can actually grab things. So they'll grab twigs and leaves, and they'll put that nest together with kind of that shorter thumb. It's not as big as our thumb.
Okay, that's really interesting, and it's so fun to watch these guys because
Yeah.
they really are very human-like in many respects, right?
Yeah, and you can actually, if you come to the zoo, you'll see their long arms and their big, strong hands at work because we give them all these things to climb on and play with. They can build a nest themselves. We can give them cloth and leaves, and they can use all those features they have.
And that's a lot of weight to support too, I would imagine, as they're swinging from tree to tree. I mean, these are big animals, especially the males, are very large.
Yeah, so a male can be almost 5 feet tall and almost 200 pounds.
Wow. So all of that swinging from the trees,
Yep,
and wow,
exactly, yep.
that is incredible.
It's pretty
Isn't that
amazing.
interesting? Wow. Well, Jordan, thank you so much. That's
Thanks, Tom.
fascinating. So when you come to the zoo, check out the orangutans with their big hands and their really long arms. And again, when you come, you can now know that they live in the trees for weeks at a time.
Weeks at a time.
Fascinating. Well, again, Jordan, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
All right, Haley, let's toss it over to you this morning.
Hey, thanks, Tom. We're in for a real treat. Take a look at this. This is right when you walk into the Hellsberg Penguin Plaza. You look straight up and you get to see this really cool imagery. So we're joined now by Randy, who's the zoo director. He's going to explain what this is. How cool.
You come in here and you never think, well, I should look up, because you're always looking at the animals. Again, when we design buildings and try to do things, we always try to look for what could we do to make it a little more unique, something kind of special people don't expect. And in the atrium here in the penguin exhibit, we put in the Southern Hemisphere light show, which are the Southern Lights. Everybody that lives in the Northern Hemisphere knows about the Northern Lights and how special those are. Well, there's a counterpart in the Southern Hemisphere
Lights.
that kind of drives off of the South Pole, and it's magnetic field, and there's so much science to this that I know kids will go to the website and look this up. But these are the Southern Lights.
Wow. So the colors, this is actually the colors that we see with the Southern Lights.
And I think there's probably a few people out there that have been fortunate enough to see the Northern Lights, but the Southern Lights are just as spectacular. And these lights originate like 50 to 150 miles up in the atmosphere.
Okay.
It's this magnetic field that is present around the North Pole and the South Pole, and these electrons and these little minute particles are bouncing all over the place, and I think the reflection up off of the sun and the moon in a darkened sky will create this light show that it's not there all the time. The conditions have to be just right, but you get this magnificent light show. We wanted to exhibit a little bit. We want to talk about the Southern Hemisphere, and the penguins are all from the Antarctic region up to the equator in the Southern Hemisphere, so why not add a little component about the Southern Hemisphere and the Southern Lights.
So we're used to the polar bears in the Northern Hemisphere, and this is something new down in the Southern Hemisphere. Not only do you feel like you're in the Southern Hemisphere, but the penguins feel right at home, right?
That's right, and we have them on a light cycle, Southern Hemisphere, so this is kind of all about the South.
Oh, it's really neat. And how do you make these images? Is it just a projector?
It's all done with projectors that go up in this globe and produce them, so kind of just a special effects here at the zoo.
Just incredible. Thank you so much for joining us, Randy. We'll be right back.
Stick around. The KC Zoo Show will be right back.
Welcome back to the KC Zoo Show. We are now in the Zoo Learning Center. I'm joined now by Allison, which is one of the education instructors. We have a cool new program that's offered at the KC Zoo. You're here to share with us a little bit about that program.
Yes. So we have a new program at the Kansas City Zoo. It's called Habitat Hunt. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to figure out where animals live, but not really giving any information, but except kind of looking at them.
Tricky.
So animals all kind of give us clues as to where they live just by looking at maybe their arms or their feet or their trunks, something like that. So I'm gonna kind of test you a little bit, quiz you. This is the education department. We want to learn something. So, do you know what a habitat is?
My guess would be where the animals live.
Very good. So it's a place for plants and animals to both live.
Okay.
Now, when we think about habitats, we think of like the big ones. Maybe a rainforest. Rainforest is really pretty. A desert, a grassland, all kinds of stuff. So let's go with desert. What comes to mind when you first think of a desert?
Dry, sand, hot.
Very good, right? Okay, so our habitats are actually determined by how much precipitation falls, like rainfall, and then what kind of vegetation is out there, what kind of plants, if there's a lot or if there's a little. So when we think about that criteria, we actually find that our biggest desert in the world is Antarctica.
Wow, now that's tricky because you would assume hot with desert.
Exactly.
And we're dealing with
very,
cold.
very cold.
Yeah.
So by that, it amazes us what our different habitats look like, but it's also really cool what kind of animals can survive those habitats too. So I've got some animals on the table, and then we've got one big fella right here. We'll hold him up. And we're gonna try by looking at these animals to determine who lives where. So we've got a desert animal, which is probably an easy hint since we just talked about a desert.
Cold.
And then we've got a rainforest animal, we've got a wetland animal, and we've got a grassland animal.
Tricky, all right.
Exactly. So I will give you some hints. This guy has feathers to help him trap heat and air in between his feathers to withstand his environment. This little turtle friend has webbed feet.
All right.
The elephant has very, very tough skin and padding on his feet to help him survive the heat. And this guy right here has got really long arms that help him swing from tree to tree. And an orangutan is known as a forest person. So.
All right, so let's go through each habitat.
So rainforest.
I'm gonna go with rainforest being this guy.
This guy, the orangutan, very good.
Yes.
So what he does is he uses these really long arms and actually really cool thumb to help him. Now let's go with grassland.
Elephant?
Very good. And grasslands are really cool because they're all different types of stuff. We call this grassland he lives in a savanna. Now what about the turtle?
Wetland.
Very nice.
Because of the webbed feet.
Exactly. And turtles love water. Tortoises actually like land, so they don't have webbed feet, which is really cool. And this big guy, what do we say?
The desert.
The desert environment, very
Yeah,
good.
it's very tricky.
He represents our very big emperor penguin that likes to live in Antarctica. So very nice.
Now, if people want to get more information on this educational program, what do they do?
Yeah, so if you want to get more information about our educational programs here at the Kansas City Zoo, all you got to do is go to the website and click on the education link for more information.
All right, Allison, thank you so much for joining us today. Tom?
Thank you, Haley. Well, we are here at the Polar Bear exhibit, the Polar Bear Passage, with Nikita swimming. You might see Nikita swimming behind us from time to time. And we are here with Laura this morning. Laura, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So we've got a lot of cool new things here at the zoo. Of course, we've got the polar bears.
We do.
Now we've got the penguins.
We've got the penguins.
Which are just absolutely riveting to watch. Just, you go into almost a trance watching them swim around and everything else. So a lot of excitement here at the zoo, right?
Oh my gosh, tons of excitement. Those best dressed birds are stealing the show from poor Nikita.
Yeah.
But everyone is enjoying them.
So tell us about just how much it costs to run parts of the zoo. I mean, we come to the zoo and we see all these cool things, but a lot of times we don't really think how much money it costs to do it.
Well, to give you an idea, the animals alone that we have to continuously take care of and feed, we spend $500,000 every single year just feeding the animals.
Wow.
The penguins alone eat 75 pounds of fish every single day. And we have to buy that fish every single day, every week, every month, every year. We've got to make sure that we've got enough food on hand to make sure that all of the animals here at the zoo are constantly fed.
Sure, so just like at home, you feed your dog or your cat, right?
Every day.
You think, you know, if your dog or cat eats a lot, that can get a little pricey every now and again, but not quite as pricey as feeding a polar bear or a bunch of penguins, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow, $500,000 a year.
$500,000 a year.
So,
on food. That's just food.
Just on food.
Yes.
And that's not mentioning everything else
Any
that's involved.
medications that they may have, making sure that we've got the temperature of the building the right temperature. We've got to make sure that we've got, if it's a temperature that has to be cool, like Nikita, he needs his water cool.
Filtered and all that kind of stuff.
We've got to make sure that all of that happens as well.
So where does all of this money come from?
You know, we are very fortunate here that we receive the funding that we do from the zoological district, but we also rely on contributions that come in. And we use those donations to help build new exhibits like the Polar Bear Passage or the Hellsberg Penguin Plaza. It takes a lot of donations to come in and continually make sure that we are building new exhibits, new play areas for all of the animals as well.
Sure. So if, so many people come to the zoo and so many people enjoy the zoo, if people want to donate, how do they go about doing it?
They can always go to our website, kansascityzoo.org. They can always send in a contribution if they would like to do that. Kids, if you want to collect any loose change around the house, those pennies, those quarters, dimes, nickels, it all adds up to dollars that we can use here at the zoo to make sure that we're building new orangutan exhibit. An elephant watering hole is what we would like to renovate as well. We've got lots of projects on the horizon.
Sure, so a lot more fun stuff on the way for the zoo, right?
Always.
And that's so fun to come here because there's always something new.
There's
you look
always
around the
something
corner and there's always something else going on.
Absolutely.
That's great. Well, Laura, thank you so much. So again, just keep that in mind when you come to the zoo, just how much money, and we all know the manpower too. We've talked to so many folks here at the zoo of just what it takes to keep the zoo running 24 hours a day. Really.
Takes a village.
Yes, well, thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you.
Haley, we'll toss it back to you.
Thanks, Tom. We're joined now by Randy, my favorite segment of the entire show. Now, before we get to Ask the Zoo Director, I just want to mention the construction going on behind us. Don't notice that. You guys are always building a better Kansas City Zoo, so we're excited to see what you have in store for that.
That's my favorite sound at the zoo.
I know,
construction
the construction.
equipment.
My favorite is when the building's already done.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, let's get to these questions.
Alrighty.
All right, the first one. Do you feed the Canadian geese that are at the zoo?
Haley, we don't.
You don't?
The Canada geese, they're just a fixture here in the Kansas City area anymore. There's so much open water that they just hang around. They don't migrate any longer. So we try to tolerate them. They kind of make a mess of the grounds. They are wildlife though, so they sort of share the zoo grounds with us.
Not only on the grounds, but also on your car. They make a mess, right?
That's right. So we just sort of tolerate them.
Yeah. All right. The second question. Why does Nikita the polar bear like to sleep in his sandbox? That's a good
Nikita,
question.
he's a 1,000-pound animal, and he sleeps pretty much anywhere he wants to. And he just absolutely loves his big sandbox. There's tons and tons of sand in there. When you visit the zoo, you might see him in this sandbox. You can't tell there's sand in there because it's like a sandbox, and it's elevated a bit. And he just loves that area to sleep in. I think he gets in there, he kind of digs a little hole. It's almost like his little Tempur-Pedic bed.
Hey, there you go.
He makes it comfortable himself. Flops down in there, and that's usually where he sleeps almost every night of the year.
Now, does Berlin sleep there too?
No, not so much. She doesn't like that area. She
Too
likes to
close.
sleep indoors in her little air-conditioned comfort condo.
Sounds pretty nice as well. Okay, and our final question. This is a good one. If you could ask of everyone to do just one thing to help save the animals around the world, what would that be?
That's one of the toughest questions ever.
a great
And
question.
just doing something is important. And I think kids know today recycling is so important. And turning that water off when you're brushing your teeth, and making sure your parents don't let the car idle when they're picking you up, dropping you off
Right.
at school. But just pick one thing, no matter what it is, and stick with it and do it.
It's everyone's responsibility to take care of
Everybody's.
our environment.
That's
so that's a
right.
great question.
Yep.
Remember, these are your questions, and if you would like to submit your questions, just go to the KC Zoo Facebook page and try to stump Randy. Thank you so much, Randy.
You're welcome out here at our noisy zoo.
I know. Hello. We'll be right back.
Stick around. The KC Zoo Show will be right back.
Well, Randy, it's been another exciting day here at the Kansas City Zoo. Once again, learning so much from the orangutans, seeing just how big their arm span is, and it's just amazing to know that they live and build nests in trees.
That's right, and their name means old man of the forest, so
Wow.
how fitting that that's where they survive, and their bodies are perfectly built to live where they do live.
Sure, and I'll say one of the coolest experiences I have had on the KC Zoo Show in this episode, going behind the scenes on exhibit with the penguins.
That's special, isn't it?
That was incredible.
And to listen to their voices and
Yeah.
the noise, and they all can tell each other apart by the calls that they make. They all sound alike to me, but it's really interesting to hear the sounds they do make.
Right, and the research that's even taken place to try to kind of decipher what they're saying.
Yeah, kind of unique experiment going on here at the zoo.
That's really incredible. Well, a very cool day here at the Kansas City Zoo, and of course there are more on the way. Join us every Saturday morning right here at KCTV5. In fact, we'll see you next Saturday at 10 a.m. for another edition of the KC Zoo Show. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching. Don't miss the KC Zoo Show every Saturday morning at 10 right here on KCTV 5.